This is Master Your Mindset with Coach Mark.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another Monday episode. Today is going to be probably one of those that's like the most downloaded because we're going to be talking about and attacking this idea of not having enough time. Early when I started this, I think it was like my second or third podcast, and I realized that this was going to be a very important subject because of the number of downloads that happened as a result of this. I'm guessing this is going to be no different, but there's been a lot of progression in Mark. If you think about like 620 episodes, I don't even know if like it'd be possible for me not to progress, but I really want to attack this today from a little bit of a different angle to really show you how to unlock that potential. All right. So in this podcast, I'm going to show you really how to get from this point of like feeling like you're just running out of time, being able to turn that around, not only to find and create the time, but to create and grow the business that you want, have an incredible connection when it comes to your family at home, all while not losing out on results. All right. Because that's what our brain tries to go to. If like, if I'm making some adjustment to my time, that means I have to lose out on results. And I guess you can come up with that. You can come up with that equation if you want, but I choose not to decide on that because there's also a way of doing it where you don't lose out on results. As a matter of fact, you get more results. So how do you know if this podcast is for you? Well, if you ever felt like you're doing a ton of stuff and not getting the results you want, this is the podcast for you. Have you ever felt like there's an area of your life right now that needs more time and attention, but you have no idea how to adjust where you're spending your time and attention right now? This is for you. Or if you feel that you just don't know how to increase your impact, the impact that you're making, whether it's at home or in your business, without having to do more, this is going to be the podcast for you. So the reason why I really want to start off with a little bit in terms of my backstory on this one is because I want to make sure that you know that I'm not talking at you. I'm really talking with you. Because here's the thing. I was a struggling police officer. I had a lot of weight to lose. I was negative. I was giving it all to my career. I was not being the father that I wanted to be. I was not being the husband my wife signed up to be. And I realized like at that time, my limiting belief was like, I don't have time. I don't have time. Now, what I can say is like, fast forward 10 years of me being stuck in that. I lost 100 pounds. I have risen up through the ranks to become a sergeant too for LAPD. I have created a business where I'm making over six figures, multiple six figures, so that way I can retire early. I have like elevated myself as a parent. I've elevated myself as a spouse. We actually went on a date day yesterday with just me and my son. And the connection that you get when you're able to come up with different ideas like that is off the charts rather than just doing it with everybody as the family typically does, just thinking about things a little bit differently. But I would never have been able to do that if I protected this idea that I don't have enough time. Now, I'm not a special unicorn. I'm like not doing anything super special. I'm not a super special person. I don't have like this really easy way for me to just like give you a formula today that you're going to be able to create that for yourself like this. It actually takes some time, but it also takes struggle. Now, what most people do is they get to this part where they've run out of time, right? And they start to think that like this must mean that something's wrong. Like this must be evidence that it's not possible. Or this is just like proof that I can't do those things that I really want to do. I can't live that purpose. I can't create that legacy. I can't create the kind of impact that I want on my business. And they're like basically solidify that this is just the way that it has to be. And what happens is you just like go out there and you find all the evidence that you are too busy, that you got too much stuff going on, that it's not possible to change. But I want you to reframe this for a second, all right? Because I want you to tell you that the fact that you don't have time right now is an important part of this process. It's an important part of the journey. If you don't have those struggles, a lot of times you don't have enough in like skin in the game to actually make a change. And this is that evidence that you needed to prove that you need to do something different. It's actually like an opportunity. Like I'm a big proponent of pain is a great teacher. All right. It shows us where we need to spend time and attention, right? If we decide and we choose to go down that path. And if we don't, guess what happens? It gets a little worse next time. It gets a little worse next time. And it gets a little worse next time until we are forced to kind of go down that path. So really for me, whenever I'm struggling, whenever I feel pain, whenever I feel like whether it's with relationships or with time or money or anything like this, I remember that, hey, you know what? This is trying to teach me something and it just helps me flip that. Okay. Now, what I want to talk about today, we're talking about time, but I want to read this sentence to you, okay? And that's thinking that everything needs to get done is the worst thing that you can do for your business, for your family, and for your mental health. So thinking that everything needs to get done is the worst thing that you can do or you can think for your business, family, and your mental health. And here's what I have to say is like, I totally get why a lot of people, including me, especially back in the day, thought that I had to do it all right? And it's like, the busier that I am, the more like I can wear my hard working badge right here and really show people like, hey, I'm sacrificing myself for the greater good. And that kind of also made me feel like, oh, you know what? I'm doing this to make an impact with my family. But when I thought about it, like that didn't actually make sense because I wasn't spending any time with my family. I was not showing up as the best version of me, right? And it was this idea that I had to do everything that really like got me stuck. And that's kind of like where I was trapped in not having enough time. Now, this may be something that applies to you too. It may be something else entirely different as to why you believe that you don't have the time. But really, if you think about like successful business owners, you probably, if you think of people like John Maxwell, when you think about James Clear, when you think about like people, Jocko Willink, you would realize and think about this, like if those people just kept doing everything that was put on their plate, they would not be in the position they're at right now. As a matter of fact, they had to stop doing more stuff than they had to start doing. Does that make sense? Like John Maxwell, he was an incredible pastor. If he had not stopped doing that at some point, he would have never been able to be the motivational thought leader when it comes to leadership. It would have not been possible. I mean, he still would have done it. It's still inside of him, but he would have not had the time or the space to take the actions to make him be this incredible thought leader, right? And so when you think about that, when you think about the fact that it's not the action, just constantly taking all the action in the world, and really it's taking action to everything that presents itself, everybody who asks you a question, everybody asks you for a favor, anybody asks you to take some kind of action. It's not the fact that you say yes to everything. And so what is it? I mean, I get to this point, and whenever I'm like breaking this down, like people are like, okay, so what is the thing that people do to actually make it so that they can have more time, so they can create what they want in their life and with their family? So I'm going to share with you guys one of the strategies that we teach inside of our Push Coach certification. So my mentor and I, Josh Coates, we co-created a life coach certification because there was so much power in understanding how your belief system works and how your brain works that we realized like other people, we need to teach this skill to them so that they can not only use it for themselves, which is why I wrote my book, Self-Coaching, right? But also like using it to help other people, whether it's through a business, through their career. I've coached tons of police officers in my career that have really helped them like excel because I understand how the subconscious mind works, and they don't even know that they're being coached in that specific moment. But really, it's about this idea of like understanding how your brain works. Now, when we talk about like emotions, and I'm going to talk about one today, emotions are important to kind of like think about, okay? So when something happens outside of you, these are the facts, these are things that everybody can agree on, right? We have an interpretation of that, and our interpretation gets us to feel something in our body. Whenever you have this feeling of being overwhelmed, this is one of those emotions that keeps you stuck, okay? It keeps you stuck. I want you to really think about this because when you're in the process of going through overwhelm, like I really want you to check in on yourself to see how that makes you show up. Because when you feel overwhelmed, like I've got so much stuff to do and I got to all do it right now, this very second, or the world's going to come to an end and it has to be done by me. First off, all that is false. But when you think about that, it's going to create you, or it's going to get you to take no action. And it's kind of weird because like in that moment when you actually need to take more action, you actually talk yourself out of it by saying, it's just pointless. I don't even know why I'm doing this anymore. And you kind of do the opposite of what you really need to do, which is just show up for that next thing, right? Now, I described overwhelm for you guys a second ago, but I'm going to read it word for word so that you understand what your brain is trying to get you to do and why it's going down this path, okay? So overwhelm is everything has to get done. I have to do it. All of this is very important this very second. And if I don't do it, the world's going to come to an end. That's really what our brain is trying to get us to do. But what it does is it manifests as this feeling of being overwhelmed. And as a result, we don't take any action. And so we just stay stuck in whatever that perpetual cycle is. Anybody who has ever done this, it's called plateauing, where you're just staying stuck. And it's just this circle over and over and over again. It's because that's what we're doing to ourselves, all right? And those feelings, like I said before, that will get us to take action. How we have to change this is we have to refocus on our story, all right? Our story. I kind of talked about it a minute ago, but it's like the interpretation of the fact that we have 5 or 6 things on our schedule, or the fact that we have a business and we can have a different interpretation, or like we could really figure out what that story is that we're telling ourselves to get us to feel overwhelmed. Now, what most people do is they don't realize that they can actually control this. They have control over what thoughts they elevate in their mind and what they focus on. Because we've all heard like what we focus on grows, right? And that's so true, because if we have this dead set that we don't have enough time, let's say I wake up in the morning time and I have like 3 podcasts to do, which is today. I have a push coach certification call. I have a 626 call. Then I'm going with my family to do whatever. I could look at my schedule on my phone and I can make that mean that I'm overwhelmed, that I got too much stuff on my plate. And really, it could be that story of like, wow, I've got so much stuff going on. Like, oh, man, I'm just exhausted, right? And then it gets me to feel overwhelmed. And when I'm overwhelmed, I don't show up the way that I need to be. I'm like, I'm talking myself out of doing some of the things that actually fuel me. But instead, I could look at that stuff and I can go, wow, like this is actually a great opportunity for me. I get to show up for all of these people. I get to teach people how to coach. I get to coach people so they can create their 6-figure business. I get all of this great opportunity. Oh, and I have the entire rest of the day to spend with my family because we're going to go to the pier. Realizing that, it's like, wow, it's not the actual thing, which is like, if you look at my schedule on my calendar, it's actually my interpretation of it, all right? And this is really what Josh and I talk about as head versus heart, okay? Head versus heart. Anytime you have this thought, anytime you have something going on in your brain that tells you, it talks about the past, talks about fear, about doubts, about lack, about scarcity, about limiting beliefs, it's your head trying to keep you stuck. When you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not going to take any action, right? But also if you feel fearful, if you feel shame, if you feel frustration, if you feel angry, you're going to take different actions that are not in congruence with what you want to create. But we also have this other voice that's inside of us, and it's called our heart. It's our heart voice. Our heart voice talks about the future, talks about potential, purpose, faith, hope, love, abundance. It's like there's an infinite number of things. Now, how I like to describe this is like when you're talking to like your kids and they tell you that they want to be able to achieve something, most of the time you're not talking to them in your head voice. You're talking to them in terms of like, this is 100% you're going to be able to do that. I can't wait to see you do that. You're so powerful. You're going to make a huge impact. Like, let's say they come up to you and ask you about wanting to do a business, and you're going to go down that entire heart voice because it's somebody else. But when you talk about it yourself and your head voice tries to come in, you got too much stuff going on. Like, how in the world can you do that? Who do you think you are? That's really selfish. Like, you're not good at business. You're a police officer. You already have a good pension. Like, you don't need to do anything like this. And it gets you to be trapped. It kind of makes you feel like you can't do anything about it. And that's what our head is designed to do. It's to keep us safe. And if we do anything new, it doesn't know if we're going to be safe or not. So it really keeps us like basically not taking any action. All right. Now, what do you do when you get into the situation and you're like, man, I really need to like change this up, right? I don't know what is going on, but I'm constantly getting this thought like I don't have enough time. Well, really, it's about finding and using the push method, okay? The push method is what we teach inside of the Push Coach Certification School, but it's just a way for you to understand how your, number one, belief drives behavior, and what is it you're believing? What is that limiting belief that is getting you to feel like you don't have enough time? And it gets you to feel something in your body. It gets you to feel like overwhelmed. It gets you to feel stuck. It gets you to feel confused. And that is going to ultimately lead you to no action. And remember, when we think it through, like using the push method or just even realizing that belief drives behavior, if you realize that that's not going to get you to take action, we got to change that, right? If that's something you want to change, which most of us do, we don't want to feel overwhelmed all the time. We can think of a different way of thinking about this, right? And it could even be what I shared in the beginning. Like, this is actually a great opportunity. It's trying to teach me something. What is it that I can learn from this, right? And you can start asking yourself powerful questions that help you make that different situation or make a different situation, okay? Can I give you an example here? I want to give you an example. So I know we kind of talked about it a few minutes ago about this feeling of being overwhelmed when you see your schedule, right? When you see your calendar. One of the things is like when you are what I coin as being triggered by something, that's when you have to really find out, what am I making this thing mean? What am I making this thing mean? It could be with relationships. It could be with your family. It could be with business. I know a lot of business owners who struggle with like the fact that they're sending messages out to people and they're not getting responses back. Well, here's the thing. Like, how many of you guys have been in business, have a successful 6 or 7 figure business and know that's a part of the game? Like, you're supposed to send messages to people so that you can find the wrong people, so that you can find and ultimately get guided to the right people. But not everybody's right for you. Like, there's not a business out here that helps every single person, right? It's like being able to put it out there in the world and not interpret it through the eyes of like, oh, because they didn't respond back to me, or they didn't take any action, or they didn't sign up for my team, as in terms of that means something bad about you. For me, it'd be like, oh, this is an opportunity to grow. Like, what can I do to create demand? What can I do to get people excited to send a message back to me? Oh, this is just a part of the process. And you can see if you're getting this feeling like, hey, you know what? Like, there's something wrong with me because I'm sending a message and they're not sending it back. You can feel disempowered, and then that'll get you to take actions, which is like you close your laptop, you stop, sharing with what it is that you have with the world. And it just goes down this spiral of like, I'm not good enough. This isn't going to be successful. Or you can go, hey, this is a part of the way that I'm supposed to feel. It's supposed to be teaching me something. What is something that I can learn from this experience? Oh, maybe I can connect with Josh and Mark and we can figure this out. Or, hey, maybe I can do this. I can read this book. I can listen to a podcast. And you guys are probably here listening to the podcast because somewhere deep in there, you know it's possible, right? And that is our heart voice. It's like, I know it's possible. I may not have the idea and the exact plan right now, but I know there's other people who've come before me, and I know there's other people who have sent messages and not gotten any messages back and didn't make it mean something about them, right? And so when we can do that, we can reframe it. Now we can open our mind to like the possibilities of finding the tactics, finding the things that are really going to work. On Thursday, I'm going to actually be talking a little bit about that, about how mindset, tactics, and environment, those three things will literally help you overcome and create whatever you want in your life if you have the right mindset and you have the right tactics and you have the right environment. But today I want to talk to you a little bit about, or I want to end with this, and that is like, I want you to really know that it is possible for you, okay? It is really 100% possible for you. If you're in that situation where you're working all the time, you're making money for your family, and you're dead set on like, this is the way that it has to be, I want to let you know there is a different way. There's a different way of excelling in your career, excelling in your business, getting into incredible shape, connecting better with your family, like whatever it is that you want to do, if you're open to the possibilities. If you can just flip that switch in terms of like, how might I be able to do that? You don't need to have the answers now. They will present themselves. Perfect example. So Josh and I co-run a group called 626. It's where we help entrepreneurs create six-figure businesses in 6 months. And we share not only the mindset, the philosophies around like a six-figure mindset. By the way, if you have a 5-figure mindset, you won't hit 6 figures, right? So having a 6-figure mindset, 6-figure sales system, and the ability of having true coaching to get you unstuck, that's really how we create that kind of like environment for people to not only get coached and get past their mindset, but also taking the right actions. So this is just one of the things that we do inside of this program. But there's massive, like amazing programs that are out there by so many other coaches, so many other people who really understand the philosophies of life coaching. And really, when you can actually find somebody who's in congruence with what you want to create, it's somebody who can really, it feels like they're able to describe your problem to a T. It feels like, wow, it feels like that person was in my shoes. And maybe you do know that they've been in your shoes and they've been able to turn it around. That's all you need to have, is you need to have that mindset of like, hey, maybe this is possible. This is possible for me too. And number two is like, this person's come before me. So let me take some of the tactics, some of the mindset, some of the environments that they've been around and just plug myself into there. And you will be amazed at what you are able to find, because when you program in your brain, it's possible for me, you will find the answers. I still remember the first time that the Data Edge podcast came across my newsfeed. My brain was like, hey, I've lost 100 pounds. I've kept it up now. I'm creating a business that's going to let me retire. I've hit this certain rank in LEPD, but I want to become a better father and a better husband. I just don't know how to do that. Even though I did have the framework, I didn't understand life coaching at the time. And what I did is I put it out into the world by just having a question. Your brain doesn't just want to have a question. It wants to have an answer. Okay. So when you program it to say, how can I become a better father and a better husband? It will present itself. It would have happened anyway. But because I was now open to it, my brain's looking for an answer outside, I found it and I plugged into the Data Edge Alliance. I joined their mastermind. I did all the things that I tell you guys to do because I knew that I wanted to level up and take it to the next planet, right? And by doing so, now people come to me to become better parents, to become better spouses, because I was able to get out there and program in my mind like, hey, there's an answer. Go out there and find somebody. It ended up being Larry, Jeff, and Jason, who I ended up connecting with that gave me that answer. And the same thing is true for you. If you open up your mind and go, you know what, there is a possibility here. There is potential. I've got this. I just got to open my mind and I will find it. But if you have this deep, deep limiting belief that I don't have the time, it would have presented itself and you would have never been open to accepting it. Never would have happened. Because anything that pops in, you're running it through this filter of I don't have time. Guys, everybody has 24 hours. Nobody else does something super incredible like in their 24 hours versus somebody else where it's not possible for you, right? It's nobody does like 24 hours worth of work in 1 hour, right? There's different ways and strategies and mindsets and tactics and of course the environment that you can find that will work for you. You just got to be open to accepting that, okay? All right, I want to end with a quick quote here, all right? A quick quote. And this is, I really believe this really true into my bones. And if you guys are listening to this, I know that you guys are leaders. So that's why I really wanted to end with this. And that is like leaders generate the energy and momentum they need to tackle anything that comes their way. Leaders generate the energy and momentum they need to tackle anything that comes their way. If you're struggling with time, if you're struggling with like your mindset, if you're struggling with that, that's okay, because guess what? Leaders generate the energy and momentum they need to tackle anything that comes their way. And you're a leader. It's time to tackle it. It's time to plug in, whether it's with us or it's with somebody else, or it's you reading certain books, or you getting uncomfortable and doing that thing you know you need to do because you know that once you take action, you can improve it, because you can't improve inaction. You can't improve inaction. Then you know that it's time for you to act, all right? And if I can help you do that, please let me know. I appreciate you guys so much for making it to the end of another episode. I don't think I mentioned this before, but we're actually putting up the videos on YouTube if you actually want to see them live. It is a little bit awkward because usually I can just like look down while I'm doing my podcast, but I just want to take a second and just say how much I appreciate you guys out there, all right? You're here listening to a podcast, getting to the end, and you're struggling with you don't have time. But let me ask you, how did you make the time to actually listen to this podcast? Think about that for a second, all right? And use that same kind of desire, that same kind of like willingness to learn, and take that into any other area of your life, and you are going to be able to massively excel. And I can't wait to be alongside you and wave as you blow by me, okay? All right, you guys have an incredible, incredible week, and I will see you guys on Thursday. Bye, everybody.